now known as Ted, do you prefer to call Ted or Edward? Yeah, Edward, who's hoping to come on board to help us as well. Alongside obviously wonderful help we get from Mike and other people. And Ted's background is in scenic construction and design, and has worked on amazing projects from Kick-Ass to Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. So yeah. So there's a wealth of, I'm speaking for you, a wealth of kind of knowledge and support that he can give us for this project from design and construction as well. And obviously, you know, Mike is amazing. He usually makes sense of my nonsense, but obviously very aware that you know, this is your project and that you'll have ideas and that you want to bring those and realise those. So. You know, I see it as a very collaborative process that everyone has skills that they can add into this. But very impressed that Charlie's already, you know, thought of ideas and come up with you know, his kind of vision for it, and that we'll all have different visions. So just at the beginning, I need to say to you, you always get frustrated when I change my ideas. I don't do that purposely. I do that through the process of working with actors when I realise things don't quite work. Or so you need to be aware that yes, it would be. I would quite like it that we know the design a lot earlier this time, and I would like a model box, and I would like to know what things are going to be made of, and that's my big request, that I have a model box to work with, because I find that's easy for actors and for me as a director.
But I think Charlie set a date for that.
Yeah, we'll have it done the week before Easter break.
Great, fantastic, yeah, fantastic. So that's quite a bit of work between them and that will really, really help me. This, as I'm sure you're aware, because you've looked into it, is a really complicated set. Or it can be as simple a set, I think, as you want, or as complex. And that there are some decisions we need to make about whether we're looking for a realistic setting, i.e. a 1962 office in America, or are we looking to take some of the design concepts from it being set in the 60s and make it a bit wacky and a bit different. I can't make my mind up about which way I like. So, and usually for me, I'm usually quite fixed on what I want in design. The thing I do know I want is I do not want it to be a show where the scene ends, the lights go down, some stage management shuffle on, put a few desks on, and then shuffle off, and then the lights come back up. That is not happening. I know as a tech team you get frustrated that I use actors to change sets, but I do it because they can act when they're doing it. I don't mean you can't. I mean that it's part of the show, and I've got a cast of 52 in this show, and I need to make sure they've got enough to do as well. And one of the things they will be doing is acting as they're moving, so there'll be little scenes where they might dance when they bring on, you know, there's always music in all the scene changes in this show, because I think the writer was starting to realise you needed something more than lights up and down. So I will be using those transitions, and I will use actors to move the furniture. That doesn't mean to say there's something that stage management could be involved with. I don't have a problem with that. You'll have to be in costume. Don't have an issue with that at all. And you will have to look at it working in an office. So you might be the window cleaners, or you might be the odd job people. That would be easy. Alright, okay.
Interactive now.
Oh yeah. Oh, is that, yeah, fixed directors do that to me. So what I think, when you've watched, and I'm sure you've all been online and you've watched versions of this show, there's some really boring versions where it's really slow. Then you watch like clips from the Broadway, and I'm much more towards, obviously, as I would be, professional Broadway kind of that feel. It's going to be quicker, where we're cutting out some of the songs, i.e. we're reducing some of the, not cutting them out completely, some of the choruses, the verses, and we will speed it up, so some of the songs will be at a different tempo, so it will move a lot quicker, because at the moment it's a 2.5-hour show, which is too long for anyone. I think a show should be an hour each half, then the audience gets to the pub. I think that's going to be hard to do this, because a lot of scenes, there's a lot of scenes, there's 13 in the first, 13 scenes in the first half, and 10 in the second, which is a lot of scenes in the second act. So yeah, I want the set to move. Sorry, that's what I was coming to. I want the set to have movement in it because I think audiences like that. You know, and that adds to the variation. So as it's moving, we'll have actors talking. So those who came to see, everyone's talking about Jamie. Yeah. So you get the idea, and that's exactly what they do. They did it with automating the stage. We'll do it with actors, and we've done it before. Made in Dagenham, if anyone saw that, was very complicated, but we did that. Made in Dagenham. Adam's Family, that was Trox.
Yeah, I've got some really scary pictures that I can show you after this meeting.
Yeah.
It shows what we have to do that, and I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Like, you know how it goes.
No, and the thing with the Adams Family was the trucks had masses of stuff on them. Like, we had to dress them, and those, you've all been at the brewery because you were with us last year. The biggest challenge is there is no backstage space. So you've got 52 actors, where the hell we're going to put them, and if you've got trucks with just the sheer volume of typists' desks in this, there might be 10, where do you put them at the brewery? And it's something that I know Mike spends a lot of time with Glenn working out where the heck, you know, how we do it. And I know, and actually you have a plan, don't you, for the backstage as much
Yeah,
as
so what I've tried to do on the weeks that you were in the workshop, there's like a little area there with like a 1 to 10 space at the brewery stage. I've started to make little bits and little plans at 1 to 100, and it shows you the backstage as well as the stage. It gives you a rough idea. Although the side you can access is adjustable a little bit with some of the flaps, we can move bits around. It's limited.
Yeah. And then you have the band. The band should be an orchestra. It won't be an orchestra for this. Why would it might not be an orchestra? I'm just curious to know why you think we wouldn't have an orchestra. I can get an orchestra, but why would it not have an orchestra? Space is one issue, but...
Is also quite loud as well?
No?
No.
Why would I not have an orchestra for this show? Yes, Kitty. Expense. Yeah. Every musician costs, I don't know, 200, 300 quid, which is actually very cheap for a musician. In London you're paying a lot more. So every musician is a cost, and so I can't afford to have an orchestra because we pay our musicians, professionals. So we're not using the school band, which would be free. We're using professional people. And talking to Alex, if we put trumpets and trombones in, you have to then have other instruments to make that work. So instead of that, we use sax. So you use sound?
Yeah.
So we'll be using sax players to supplement that brassy kind of sound, but then it makes it cheaper because you don't need all those other musicians. So at the moment we're looking at about 6 musicians. But again, housing those musicians is always an issue. I'm really keen, as I think you are, Charlie, of them being visible. Maybe not all the way through the show, but at some points it'd be really cool to see the band. If they're visible all the way, it doesn't worry me, it'd be really nice. But out the way is the big thing. You can't have actors passing past the musicians. So they need to be either elevated or behind something. But if you're going to put them behind something, they're probably best to be on stage right, because the actors don't tend to pass there as much. You know, there's a lot of entrances from stage left, because obviously that's the biggest entrance. The wings at the brewery are just, you can't really get masses of people. You can get them on single file. In terms of, so I went through the script, and I have worked out, as I'm sure you have, that there are, as I say, 13 scenes in the first half, 10 in the second. And I've colour-coded it, which you might want to do, to get some sense about what scenes, what's happening in each scene. So when it's the same colour, that's a repeat of that location. Okay. So you have like the corridor, that they call the corridor, is used 3 times. Bigley's office is used 3 or 4 if you make that the boardroom as well, which I think we should do.
Yeah.
So you don't have an extra room for the boardroom. The outer office, which is where the typists are all meant to be, that's used 5 times, so it's very popular, that one. Elevator landing, so in front of the lift, is 3 times, but you might decide that the elevator's on all the time anyway. And then there's 8 specials, and by specials I mean 8 locations that are only used once and we never see them again. So that is back to the Adams Family issue that we had, you know, things that you create and they're never used again. Yeah. So that's the challenge. And it's very dancey, so we need space. Space looks boring to me. I have a real issue with space on stage because I think, and I look at the Broadway one, I think that looks really boring. Like you've got one tiny little desk and then nothing. So I really struggle with space, but as Kerry will tell you, you need space for dancers. But the other thing you need for dancers, I believe, is you need levels. You can't have all your dancers dancing on flat because it looks really boring to an audience, especially the raked stage. So finding a level as well might be quite nice at the back. So that's all my thoughts at the moment. I've printed out images, which I'm sure you guys have. That's how I want my secretaries to kind of look. So obviously costumes is the thing I've not really talked about. Obviously Kate Reed is our costume designer and she's amazing. And we're looking at colours that are kind of like that. But these are images. So the mailroom, for example, I do want it to be a bit more established than, I mean that's Broadway, so that's like $1 million budget probably.
Yeah. Was the mailroom scene, is that like the first scene? Is that one?
No, it's very early. It's scene 4, and it's one only.
It's just one.
One only. Yeah. Yeah. So these are just images from different versions of the show that I've seen. I took that lift, but I don't like that lift. Just to show you, I find that it's a bad photo anyway. But that looks. I don't know why, but it looks like amateur theatre to me. I just look at that and I just see that's like
it's quite like generic wallpaper.
Yeah. I think that, and so I know I don't like that. So.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't look like it's got a lot of form to it, massively.
Honestly, if I had £1 million budget, I'd be having some of these. I would like the coffee machine to be created. That's the thing. So some shows you see on a trolley, which would be the most sensible and the cheapest way of doing it. But I actually really like the idea that we have an actual coffee machine. You know, for coffee breaks, it's only used once. So that's something. Although it can be in the background of scenes. I'm not wild on desks that don't look like desks. I'm not wild on things that look like they are just a block. But that, in the end, might be the compromise because we've got to have so many.
How many used to the table wise?
Well, yeah.
Does every dancer got one?
No. I would say 8. 8. Yes, I would say 8, and we can work with 8. I mean, again, unlimited budget. I would have lovely platforms that ain't happening. So there's other versions of the toilet scene which are quite interesting. It's just light. I think lighting in this is going to be really crucial. There's some really clever, and I've already seen some of your ideas in Charlie's set with lighting that looks really, really good. I mean, that's not a bad idea of how to make a very open space look quite interesting.
Oh,
yeah. So these are just things that I've copied that I liked. Your panels,
Was there any other scenes that were higher? Like the table seems one of the things that are going to be moved.
Yeah.
Is there any others like that?
No. There's a cocktail lounge which is on the rooftop, and that's it can be represented with a cocktail bar and some. It's meant to be tables with umbrellas. So maybe the desks can be multi-purpose, I don't know. Yeah. Basically, there's a TV studio which can be quite empty, and that can be done with props like a TV 1960s TV camera on legs, I imagine. The TV studio is, it's kind of shot in an empty space, isn't it? So yeah, it's more direct. It's props, that one, more than big set things. What else is there? So there's quite a lot. Bigley's office is a bit more sumptuous, obviously. So the other idea I had, and just to throw this in the pot, that I don't know if you know how, you probably don't know the script quite as well as I do at the moment, but Finch rises up. And he gets a new office every time he rises up. So he gets 3 offices in the show. And I had the idea that he starts with a very small office that's a bit like a box room. Yeah. And and then the next time it's a bit bigger, and we have something that maybe has expandable walls that each time he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. so you start with one design that then gets adapted, so it's very obvious that we've just opened the walls out a bit further, or I don't know if that's possible.
Very similar idea.
Did you? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Like,
Right.
because like in everybody's talking about changing when the sets up real seams for
Oh, I never realised that.
well, it like shifted and grew out.
Ah, right, okay,
And then-
cool.
So same thing really.
Yeah,
As he's rising up the sections around.
yes, so
You
he
could
gets
isolate the spaces with light and
yes,
to kind of simplify things quite nicely.
yeah, yeah,
I like that idea because I don't know how you do it on the stage yet, but just playing with that idea of something starting with nothing, or
Yeah.
going on the table in the office, downstairs in the basement.
yeah,
Suddenly that, if you start with the start of a show like that, and you're ending with every single thing on there flashing like that all the way,
yeah,
suddenly you move the audience comes in saying,
table.
is this it? Is this the same?
yeah,
But suddenly this thing will grow, this thing
yeah.
showing how that.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that really sort of story
Not quite. The story is basically he's learning how to rise, and he has a book. And he starts as a window cleaner, but the first scene you see him taking his, he's going to have overalls, but they're going to be the magnetic ones, so you just rip them off, and underneath he'll have his suit. So he starts in some way. We need to find him in the West End. They obviously had him elevated on a window cleaning gurney. We can't hang off anything at the brewery, can we?
There's one bar towards the back where we can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's
So move
not for massive things. We use them in Dagenham. We used them to vaguely support at one point the spelling bee stuff, didn't we? But
There was a swing. We put a swing in the Adams
Yeah,
family,
yeah.
and it was downstage. She sat on it. She didn't swing on it, but it
Yeah.
was off the
Yeah.
ground.
But again, something like that, you could do that on like steel deck. I suppose
Yeah.
these are the conversations we'll have when you
Yeah.
design it, I suppose.
The other way we can do it simply as actors is we just get ladders, and he's on two sets of ladders with a pole, with a scaffold, not scaffold, builder's board. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Decorating board
Yeah.
in between them, and he's just on that at the side. You can imagine that stage right where the towers are, and you put a projection of a window on there, and he's cleaning that.
Yeah.
Because he's only on that for seconds, and then he flips off it, and then the office opens out. So the choice is as well. I'm not sure if you're aware, Charlie. We have a black drape that a gauze curtain that we bought for Adam's family. So we were able to isolate front and back. Whether we'd want to, it's a bit of a faff to put up, but it does hide what you've got behind, and so you could have him cleaning the window at the front of the stage, then curtain rolls, an actor moves the curtain aside, and then it opens out to the office and the elevator and all the cast coming into the very busy kind of office, which is my idea how I'm going to direct it. It's going to be very busy that first bit, people come to work, and that's why again I quite like things moving, so that people are chatting as they're maybe walking through doorways that are moving. So you might actually construct a load of doorways that are not actually part of the set, that are just used for this transition moments. So you have corridors that people walk through, and then they turn around and they disappear, and we only use them in the transitions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it becomes more like a dance really in between. So I quite like a lot of chaos. Yeah. Our set's quite well known for being clever like that, because most companies that come into brewery don't. They just put a set in, and it's like Spelling Bee, it just stays, and Spelling Bee was a great set, but it was right for what we needed. I think if we can get some of the West End magic of things moving, we've got enough actors to move it. We don't need automating, but it's where we store it, it's how light it needs to be, what it needs to be made of is really important. And I also would like you to think about what is there that the audience see when they first come in. What is the outside structure that doesn't move? So you build maybe a framework, and that stays stationary, and that might be your lift, it might be some of your doorways, but then, as Mike was saying, that's what we add into the design. Yeah? That's my bit. So I suppose first decisions is to think about the style, what it looks like. Are we going realistic office? Are we going slightly 60s? Are we being imaginative?
I think the kind of abstract side of things gives us more flexibility sometimes, doesn't it, than the realistic effect. If we go down
Some
that
of
route.
the doors things like
Yeah.
around it, like things which would be on casters that would roll on, somebody opens one box and then it rolls around, somebody walks through it.
Yeah.
It's that type of thing.
Yeah. A bit like, you know, in Windsor Millers when I had them going through the frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same effect, but
Right.
actually with doors.
Yeah.
In this. Yeah.
Have you seen the Grand Budapest Hotel?
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Once
maybe
when I had jet lag. I saw bits. It was very good. Yeah.
I'm thinking like that kind of style maybe,
Yeah.
like how everything's sort of flat but like very visually pleasing.
Yeah.
If you've got those flat surfaces, you're going to build, there's going to be more space for the dances and things like that, I suppose, isn't there? If you go with most surfaces that actors can be on, theoretically.
So that's very 1960s
Yeah.
colour.
It's quite charming as well.
My first instinct is it's not blingy enough.
No.
It's a wee bit. I know why you would do it because that's authentic. So that's the difference between do we go authentic or do we ramp it up? And I get why you would do that. That is a real office in 1960.
Yeah.
Are we going for real office 1960 or given how fantastical the characters are, I think I would push the colour a wee bit more, Charlie.
Yeah.
It's Wes Anderson, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's like you're saying, it's spot on, but the colour would change it massively. And he
Yeah.
kind of does, on all his other films, he kind of goes with the colour more. He
Yeah.
tones it down on that film for some
Yeah.
reason. But
Yeah,
yeah, the costumes are pretty wacky as well.
yeah. I think that's maybe where it puts colour. Yeah, yeah. Whereas I think for Kate, she's going for because there's so many. She won't be stylising the costumes to the extent she did for Spelling Bee. So they're more likely to look like proper 1960s people in an office.
Yeah.
So we'll have to get it from the set, I
I
think.
think a lot of it will blend into that, the colour schemes as well, if she's already got that.
Yeah.
We kind of need to really think about blending those in a little
Yeah.
bit, don't we, really?
Yeah.
So we don't want a complete offset.
Yeah.
I was thinking in terms of like the shapes and stuff, to
Yeah.
use stuff like this, like flat but not quite, like 3D.
So something that's slightly off kilter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like with these kind of textures,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Just like
yeah.
those, not those exact ones, but
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Could we use some of the stuff that we've used for Diamond?
Uh,
It's like some kind of-
no, it's all been chopped off and reused and there's nothing left really, I don't think. And also 1960s America is different from 1967 Britain.
I was thinking just like by those patterns, it reminded me of the same.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely similarities. I think the writer set this in 1962, but actually the females and the costumes and the feel of it is more 1950s America, which is slightly more kitschy and kind of, yeah, don't think Vietnam, which was starting to, I don't know,
Yeah.
Vietnam, it is much and more looking back to an America, but yeah, I would say. It's what we say about colour, you know, that is a variation of greens, but very striking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, and I do quite, I've got to think about that fluorescent kind of pinky kind of colour actually. I don't know, I didn't like it when I first saw it, and now I kind of see it, I quite,
Kind of growing,
yeah.
I think as well, if we want lighting or projection to be integral with it, we want to keep kind of quite a clear base set, don't we? So if we're trying to get, like that one you were showing there,
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of emphasis on the lighting that's actually picked out.
yeah,
Right.
lighting's
Because-
amazing, and I mean,
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
love
say-
this for the use of LEDs. I mean, again, that's, I don't think that's it's not Broadway that, but, you know, it's some American school that's got shitloads of money to go upstairs. They all have. But when you're talking about designs, Charlie, that's quite interesting in the texture that's on that.
yeah.
That is done by woodwork, I think. Yeah.
It's all very angular, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's interesting because talking about the period it's set, the 60s and going into the 70s, it was very much like, it was getting quite flamboyant. But if this is set in the late mid-50s, it just come out the back of the wall, everyone's kind of been able to afford stuff. But the suits are kind of, they're still kind of warish. You know, they've not gone full on flower power yet. It's
Yeah.
kind of still, so it's getting that balance right. Like you're saying, does the set do the angles and the kind of flamboyancy in a way? It's just getting it right, which again will take a bit of discussion and stuff, but it's like that's a perfect example. Like that's just like, I don't know, you could see that in a housing estate in Milton Keynes. Like it doesn't really do it,
yeah,
does it? But,
yeah,
but then then you've got something like that, which again, is kind of, again, it's playing around with the shapes, giving that effect in it. Like, it's almost like a padded 1960s, 1950s kind of sofa or something like that. So, it's
So
just,
I think I would quite happily go a bit funky actually. Now I look at those, I think that might give you more fun as a group to do. I think maybe let's look at shapes and textures. Yeah.
In terms of lighting, have you thought anything for like texture, colour, any specific moments?
I like how they used LEDs in some of these sets where they've put them into the set.
Yeah.
So it makes it like almost like the West End are really good at that, you know, lighting up bits on the actual set itself rather than thinking about what's in the roof.
Yeah.
So I think lighting is really important in this as well for colour to balance with whatever colours you decide to do with the set, I think. So I think you can be quite imaginative. I mean, there's some amazing lighting effects from some of these.
That picture reminds me of Spider-Man. Broadway.
Oh yeah.
The asymmetrical shapes and the skyline stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, that's obviously another very well-resourced school in America, because it's not Broadway. But yeah, I think the essentials I need is a lift. I do definitely need a lift, and I think possibly I would need some practical doors that are established on the stage, and then everything else can maybe move. I don't know. I don't know.
So with a lift, is it a lift that goes up and down, or is it just a lift door?
I think it's doors.
Just doors.
It's not going to be our house again. Do you remember Mike once had to shove a door up under the stage when the play was
I
going
remember
on?
being on the stage with the jigsaw during sound check before the show to make the hole for the doors were going to come up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be there.
No. That was our house, which was another really complicated set, wasn't it? Our house. That moved as well.
We've talked about some ways with lighting projection of how to actually make the lift, the elevator move. And
Yeah.
I was thinking,
so to speak.
Yes.
I've got this like
So-
pattern
Yeah.
on next to the elevator.
I saw that, and I like what you're thinking, but that's one little bit. I think we need you to think of the whole look of the whole. So that, you could put that on the elevator, but if you've only got those little bits of colour, what's the rest of it? It all needs to tie in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of like, making the elevator look like it's moving,
Yes.
you can have it like change colours if it moves
Yeah.
down.
Like it. Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. The other thing you can do alongside that, I really like that idea, a bit at the side, is you can have one of those little ding 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 ding
Yeah.
ding
Yeah.
ding
Yeah.
things as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Thomas, were you there when we did the dance lesson and showed you the video for Motion House?
Yes.
Look at Motion House, because they do the whole, you're doing something and there's like waterfall moving and the projection that you do it.
Brilliant. Much nicer the actors that always work with projection, aren't they?
It's dance company.
They always work with projection.
Yeah, so they got like a hat, like a water pipe and then sliding down and then climbing up it and stuff.
Oh yeah. You mentioned that.
I did see a really interesting concept when I was looking into this of a fold-out set. I'm just thinking, I think it's this one that we could experiment with. I don't know if you can see this or come across that image. See that? You got this kind of folding wall at the back.
Yeah.
We could maybe incorporate that somehow. Yeah, so it almost flattens into the side and then comes out.
Yeah, I have. Funny enough, initially when Peter came to talk to me, I showed him. I have some display boards, and that's one of the ideas I had. And the display board is quite useful to use as a kind of tool to work out how you do it. But it's similar to that. So an actor pulls one end, and it becomes something else. And I love the things that become something else. I think that, not easy. But what is quite good about that set you've just shown is it's quite lightweight.
Yeah.
So the main thing is that actors can move things really quickly. And I think there is a bit of me that if you could get most of it on the set in some way, and it's the set that's there that moves and turns, it will save on your space backstage.
So I was thinking about all the things, maybe if you have the two at each side, perhaps you can maybe then fold them out and then they are just going away to where those towers are, because there's quite a lot of dead space down in those poles.
Yeah, I definitely want something on the wall, the side walls. I don't want black, I don't want basically a set at the back and then nothing Yeah, everything. You need to use the whole of the space. That's all the towers right through, and I want a design that goes right through. We don't need to decorate the auditorium this year. I don't think that is necessary for this show. Yeah. And the floor. Think about the floor. Okay, so
Yes, what do you think of the floor?
I hate the floor at the brewery because it's
Yeah.
crap. It's like working on a load of it's just rubbish. I would love us to, having seen what Lauren's done, the guys have done in Earthquakes in London with just basic masking tape on the floor. That's quite relatively cheap. The only trouble is it does scuff, and we've got to have tap dancers. So I don't know. Think about what we could put on the floor that's cheap enough to do. It might be, I don't know. The brewery don't like us. The idea is we could stick some laminate stuff down. It's probably too expensive to buy a covering for the floor in terms of wood. We've always looked at that, and I just think it's really. I was at Lambda a few weeks ago, and they bought in chipboard, thick chipboard on the floor, and they marked it out as a gym. It looked amazing, and it really is. It works really, really well. But I think you're talking a lot of money.
What kind of look are you wanting to go for the floor?
It's, well, you know the company's called WWW, so it's whether you use the floor to put some sort of look like, you know, you put the logo in somewhere.
Like a massive logo, like a round logo on the floor.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
If you do use our ones, you can break it.
It would, so they would, you know, we'd have to bring something that was out, yeah. Actually, you can paint the floor if you repaint it back. But you have to repaint it that night to get out, so yeah, I think you're right, Ed. You could paint it, but we'd have to get an agreement.
You could look quite good.
Maybe go pay for hours to...
Yeah.
Something you could do quite well with tape, potentially, as well, is something like these kind of patterns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So like that, it would take time.
It's almost like wallpaper
Yeah.
look, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to the right kind of thing, obviously.
So Ted was also saying, if we've got agreement, you can paint like fake vinyl, which looks like that, which might be with a stencil easier. So that might be nice to change the floor, wouldn't it?
How much would that dance floor if we don't mind?
Oh, I don't know, about 4 rolls of that. I think
Just
the
doesn't
thing,
land.
the way you're looking at with things moving, there might be an element where some of the back, where the flats are sort of moving around a bit, there's actually a structure in the floor, so it is actually a false
Raised.
floor on the back of the stage,
Yeah,
you know, in front of the band type thing,
yeah,
which isn't really danced on, but it is got the mechanisms for you moving and you run race for the rollers and things like
yeah,
that. And that could be part of the floor, so it's not.
yeah. So you mean like
You
a
can
little,
blend that in maybe
Yeah.
somehow
yeah,
to the rest.
yeah,
With the vinyl. Let's have a ball, maybe maybe blends from black to
yeah.
the pattern.
And
Also, you don't, sorry.
so no,
I
no.
was going to say, you don't want to make it too fussy if you've got a really complex floor and you've got a really complex scene. People are really just a bit bamboozled by it all, so it's kind of, it's getting a happy medium, which might work well to perhaps be busy at the back with your set, and then it blends forward into, I don't know, a grey kind of vinyl 1950s flooring type thing, but then goes off into something patterned maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just something to think about, isn't it?
yeah. Nice. And the other thing to think about is like where we set, in a way, all these various offices, because you may decide that you're going to do something with one of the side bits, so say stage right where those towers are, and that's where, you know, Bigley's office is, and therefore you need to do something that can change that wall behind that becomes the background to his office, or something like that. So we're thinking about flats coming in, or trucks coming in, but actually it might be that you've got it somewhere in that space that we flip something and that becomes Bigley's office, or yeah, and so that uses the space again. Yeah, and you know I like pushing things always towards the audience. I don't like be too far back. I think because of the number of students we're going to have, and I think we are possibly looking at needing space behind where the lift is to be similar to where we had the car for Mid and Dagenham.
Also like the screen that you've got access from the back.
Yeah.
Panel.
Yeah, so do you know what I mean? So instead of the actors all coming through stage left, there is an entrance stage left, but they also can come through the centre where the lift will be. But you've got enough space behind there for there to be
It
enough
needs to be
actors.
completely closed off.
But that's why you might then need to put your band above, so
Yeah.
they're out of the way. Because, yeah, walking around the band is always a bit of an issue, really. It's It's not an easy.
Yeah, because that middle elevator is not used at all, is it? It's just the left and the right ones.
Oh no, I only want one elevator. I only need one,
Yeah.
and it is used. Middle one is the one that's used.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, so the you think the elevator would be in the middle?
I see it's middle. I don't know
Like
anybody
a
else.
centerpiece?
Yeah.
I see it as.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No, he's
But
hitting
it's
it.
up to you.
It's hitting it for a few scenes and not.
Well, this what I was saying before, we need to decide what is the framework, so what the audience see pretty much all the time, and then are the trucks for the other offices, do they block that, or is it just in the background?
So the basis could be, we could say, like
The
lift is centre stage, is
Yeah.
like the back centre, that's
Yeah.
the thing we've got to do.
Like the doors for the maiden
Yeah.
diagonal doors, yeah.
Yeah.
Come out from it when it needs featuring, sort back in.
Yeah, it could, yeah. Or
Okay.
turned round and that becomes got a lot to think about, guys. It's yeah, yeah. So, how do you guys want to work now? Do you want? You don't need me to. I've given you kind of ideas and.
I think what would be really good is so we've got, how long have we got now until Easter when we plan to have a final model box done? About 4 weeks. It'd be good if we can kind of at least have a set kind of time where we can just revisit where we're up to, what ideas we've got to, and then we can obviously tweak. So by the time we get to the model box, we've had a good few check-ins, and we should at least be on very close to the final.
Yeah. Well, you've got Ted and Mike here now, so
Well,
I
I think-
suggest you use them.
Yeah, so if you want to, I've got some bits set up through there that I've been doing, just prepping for it. So if I go through that with you,
Yeah.
what we're looking for, sort of thing. And the big thing with what Hilary said is this collaboration thing, communication, collaboration between all parties, yeah? We've had instances before, I'm not joking, when we got to the brewery to set the scene, and somebody said, oh, I didn't know the set was going to be there. I put the lightings on the back there.
Yeah.
You think, well, what? So we spent this along from here to when we get to the brewery, nobody's mentioned to somebody else that the
We had to
lighting
move
would
spelling
be
bee
blocked.
last year.
So
By
maybe
the
it
things,
is
okay.
important to have a weekly meeting with all.
So I think
the
weekly
people.
meeting is very good, but please, on small scale stuff, use the model boxes like your centre
Yeah.
of communication. What ends up on that is going to be made into plans and all that. I'll go through that anyway now.
Following on from that, from the spelling bee last year, there was talk about using cars to cover up the band, and then we got to making the set, and then Nathan realised there was where I was going to project, because there was no gauze and band. So there's all that like key big changes like that you need to communicate.
So really the model box on that thing is an experimental thing. We're going to be throwing everything onto this model box to see if it works scene by scene.
Yeah.
Okay? And if it doesn't work, it goes. And we don't have pride about it, just we need the show to work completely, don't have everything to mesh together and work together.
And
Equally,
this
the
is
lighting
a big
is
challenge. I mean, and the college throw a lot of money in terms of budget towards this. So there's a lot of responsibility, and this is like the sort of thing you would get to do in your third year, at maybe at uni. So we do put a lot on you, and it's a big leap from the stuff you've done to creating this. But I have real faith that we get there, but it's not an easy pathway, I can tell you. And and I will frustrate you. Because I only want the best we can do, and that's why our shows have the reputation and why we do really well. And you'll hate me a lot of times, and then by the end you'll go, yeah, I've really achieved something. But the thing I would say as well, just on my teacher head on, I'm sure Alison Glenn, keep every single scrap of evidence, notes, anything from this, start now, get a folder, start to put it in, because all of this is evidence, it's process. Yeah? Mistakes are process. So if you create something for me and I don't like it, that's process. Keep it, it's valid, it's all good evidence. It doesn't have to be distinction level satisfaction for the director for it to be a distinction level for you as part of the process. Yeah?
And the last one will lead really well. It's this was what was the Adams Family, okay? So I look at this now, I showed this after the show, this would go under a bench in the 3D room. It's laid there, undisturbed for that length of time. And the planning, okay, that's the brewery layout. And I look at that now and I think that's not going to work. But it did, the students pulled it together, they made that work. And if you pass them around, all these are different scenes, okay? If you look at the top, we've got different scenes, stuff on the stage, have a look at those. I don't think this show is maybe as complicated as that, but I can't believe any students group would ever pull that off, but they did. And that's between working together. I think that group that did work together.
Yeah,
Just
very,
working together.
very good group.
Yeah, but it was sharing of ideas. It wasn't just one idea. And when you, and all the development work with this is in here. There's drawings that have been forgotten about. There's gauze samples. There's orders that didn't get signed. That doesn't matter now. Look, there's even a little thing there that you want to be looking at. How you secure yourself. There's a drawing, look, that's like, I don't know what it is now. Always a bed or something. It's folded out into that. Okay? But not much. These are just
That was,
sketches.
Pugsy's bit.
Yeah.
Oh my word, and there was a front view of how the set was going to look when it was set up. Yeah, so it's all that. This is a file. This isn't going for assessment, this one. Yes, it's this sort of stuff. As Hilary said, it's valid. There's a student's work, what was he working on? Gravestones. Oh, there was a development work.
Yeah.
It's development work. It's part of the process, isn't it? It's part of the communication in a way between everybody.
So we can get back into it well. If you do keep it and then you do another show down the line, if something didn't work for this one, then it would still be, you still put the effort in, so it might come from another one 2 years, 4 years down the line.
Yeah.
It's worth keeping.
So what I think I've got, yeah, so what I've tried to do is all the stuff there potentially is on the table there for you guys to work on, to plan out a bit, and talk between each other with it.
So I will leave you so you can talk and break off and have some ideas. And as I say, use these guys. Yeah. And we'll chat. Yeah.
Was there any questions? Nothing against the fires.
Firstly, just a quick question. The book voice, is that going to be recorded?
No, he's going to be real.
Cool.
It's a real person.
That's fine.
It's Harry Dixon. I do
I was
apologise
expecting
to
that.
everybody in the room in advance because I didn't think any actor, funnily enough, I didn't think any actor would want to do it because at that stage all they would know is it was going to be a recorded voice, so they wouldn't be on stage, you wouldn't see them. And I couldn't unhear Harry Dixon's voice doing it when I heard it, and I just thought he'd be hilarious doing it in English, like Oscar Wilde. And so I asked him, and then of course all the second years got up in arms because they did want to do it because that's them. But actually, I stand by it. I think Harry would be hilarious. He's going to change costume every time. So in terms of lighting, we need to design a lighting state just for Harry.
Just for him.
Yeah, because he needs to look like he's not actually there.
And would that change in relation to what
He
he's
will be in
wearing?
different places.
Different places.
He will change. He's going to change his outfit every
So do
time.
you want each time for it to be slightly different, or just?
I think that would be
in
hard for
relation-
you. I
Yeah.
think maybe design the lighting state for Harry and
Just
yeah,
copy it.
yeah, it'll, yeah, and,
Yeah.
Move, and I can work out where he's going to stand and
Fine.
stuff like that. So yeah, so that's not recorded. But what we might add in, I don't know what we'll add into this sound wise actually.
Just like
I mean the band is complicated. one as well, so that's
Do you know
it's quite
what
musical.
instruments we're using?
I will do, but
Yeah, that's
yeah, at the
There's no
moment,
rush, obviously.
So
yeah, a lot of percussion.
we'll put John in touch as bandman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
well,
put John in touch with
And,
Alex.
and Alex is a professional MD. He's worked with really top companies, so he's great, and you'll learn a lot from him as well. So it's a really good learning experience. But you have to be absolutely on the ball, John. That's one thing. There's no
Just keep communicating. That's the main thing.
no compromise on that with the band. And mix doing the levels and stuff at the brewery is quite stressful. Yeah, it's lighting people.
I mean, fingers crossed.
You have to work really quick,
Yeah.
and you have to know your stuff.
We
'cause I
are
don't-
hoping to
You know what
be
I'm like.
kind of more on
Yeah.
it than it was last
Because I'm
year in
promoting
terms of
52 actors, a
beforehand.
set, everything. Yeah.
There's a lot more we do now in terms of pre-planning, so in terms
Yeah.
of having the
Yeah.
actual thing
It really
on
helps
the,
the
on the
brewery let
desk and
us,
so on.
yeah,
before
let
we
us
go in.
for a small fee.
Well, because
Really,
because we're getting the model box slightly sooner, it
Yeah.
means that we can
Yeah,
plan and build queues sooner,
yeah.
get ahead sooner.
Is the plan also with the timescale to get something set up in the box like we've done before? We've got a skeleton of the
Yeah.
set layout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so structure in.
And we've got a date for like 2 weeks before the
Well,
show.
we've
Oh,
got,
it's just
we've
before
got when the
final.
boxes out, it's the boxes out obviously after that FMP
From
final show.
these,
There's a
Well,
music gig, isn't there?
No, well, I know.
And better not be.
No, I wouldn't have booked anything.
I'll go
in.
for it, say there will not be.
There was a music you're going to box, I think. Music.
There won't be anymore.
I think that was maybe
No,
Carl.
we can't.
I'll check that. But one thing I was going to say is I will need the tightness tables really early because that we dance with them. So any of those kind of things, the thing I will need early is the stuff that you will probably do last, and I do need
The
it.
moving
That's,
fixtures.
I need the moving stuff so I can choreograph it with the cast.
So how early is early for you? For
As soon as you we decide the design, get building,
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
Essentially 2 weeks design, yeah. We've got to really battle it out and get the thing that works, like those things there with movements. These things can be alterable, but you want the bulk, the big stuff and the stuff you need
Yeah.
for rehearsals.
Yeah.
And then we need to, sort of jiggle with the rest of it, isn't it?
I would encourage you to do what I did and go through the whole of the play and work out what scenes, because unless you get that in your head, you know, it's a logical thing. You need to know what's on stage and how often it's on stage, because that makes it more important in terms of what it looks like and all of that, yeah, and where we store it,
Yeah, so the model box will be picked up.
yeah.
On WordPress there's a template for like a breakdown, scene breakdown, so you can tweak it to departments. So say you're making some sort of template, so just going through resources in WordPress.
In terms of props, who's props?
It's going to be year 1. It's likely going to be our team of Lydia and Sam, I would
Okay,
imagine.
so props will be probably realistic. I won't be looking
Is
for
it perhaps like
do you know what? It's dressing the set heavy.
right?
So that's when the props are heavy. In that, if it's Bigley's office, I'd expect a really nice big desk, you know, with a nice phone and an intercom system, and I might put a rug in there to make it, because I hate when things are just stuck on a stage in the middle of nowhere. So I might put a nice rug in there on top with a phone and a plant. So I might build scenes. I think I would quite like. So it is quite a good, complicated job actually.
Spud, you'll be the main second year collaborating with the props there,
Yeah.
so you'll be the go-to.
So our friends in the antique shop will be talking to us. A lot of funds in this. Ideally, in an ideal world, to have all funds matching, but you're never going to get those 8 of those. But yeah, they're big. Like they do have them in the antique shop, but they don't have 8.
And if you do want like a typewriter and you don't have enough, I have 2 phones.
I think the problem is that it's not a typewriter, it's a lot of typewriters.
Yeah, one was 1964.
Yeah, that's fine.
The other one
Yeah.
is 63.
I think that's what I was saying. If we go for this style where the desks aren't all the exact same, I think the desks have to be, I'll reiterate, the desks have to look the same.
Yeah.
What's on the desk doesn't. So I'll put
Yeah.
files on somebody's desks and maybe an entry on somebody else's. And that then allows us to not have to make every phone the same colour. But once you go down the look of everything looking the same, like they often do in the West End, that's when you get into big costs. So I would theme each of the typist desks.
Makes perfect sense.
So it's quite a lot of props backstage.
But at this early stage, while we're still looking at design,
Yeah.
and would the preference still be, if there is a viable option, to have everything matching? Because we're at the very early stage of that, if there is the option.
Yeah, I think you'd
That
have
would
to
be the
hire.
preference.
You'd have to hire phones. Yeah.
So that's why I'm very
10
likely if there is a
yellow
viable
phones.
option.
Yeah. I do quite like the idea of the desk being a bit individual, because we're going to do, because I've got to use all these actors that I shouldn't have. I'm going to put things into on their desks and in their desks that I can use for the actors to act with. Otherwise, there's nothing for them to do a lot of the time.
Speaking of prop sets, Alex, SX, what do we have in terms of department budget? Is it the same as last year, or is it going to be reduced or increased?
We tend to, whatever it comes to, we tend to manage to cover it, but we don't. I mean, the show, basically, I budgeted this show before we started at 17 grand. But based on ticket sales, and that's an increase in ticket sales, I reckon it'll lose 7 grand. Okay, so I can give you budgets, but like the brewery charges nearly £7,000 to be there. The rights are nearly 2,500 once you pay for the scores and everything. And musicians, you're talking 3,500 grand. So it all massively adds up, and this year I've reduced, I've done an odd thing you might think with ticket prices, because I think last year was Spelling Bee. On the Saturday night we only sold 164 tickets, and it should have been sold out. And last year was the only year when I put the price to £14 on that Saturday night, and I think what happened is parents just came on the other nights when it was cheaper.
Yeah.
So I have reduced the ticket price on Wednesday, Thursday, it's now £12.50, which is cheaper than we've had it for years, and it'll be £13 on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And with that, we just need to sell more. So it's a risk of taking in order for us to sell more tickets. We don't have anyone from your team on marketing, so we're all going to have to market, because there's no point doing a show and not having an audience.
I think that was one of the issues last year as well.
We do have a head of marketing.
It will be year one.
It's Victoria.
Oh.
And I have told Victoria if she wants, if you have any questions, or like wants like a quick answer to send me a message.
Because Amy wrote to marketing last year with Sarah. So she's...
I know. One of the reasons why you might go, why the hell is Hillary put the first years in the second years? So that is purely, well not purely, but quite often it's an economic decision. Because if you only have 24 actors in a show, you're only going to get their version of parents and grannies and that. Whereas if you have 52, you get their parents, their grannies, their friends. And so you're already, that's why schools don't have to worry about the budget like I do, because schools sell out. Because they have like little Jimmy from year 7, you know, right through
Our
to...
marketing needs to be based on the general population, so we're always going to get parents regardless. We could do no marketing
Yeah.
for parents at all.
And we do have a reputation, and people book our show regardless of what show it is, because they know they're going to see something different, and for a good reason. And each year, each show is really, like last year's was the most challenging in terms of being a different type of show, and people loved it. So, you know, and this is back to being a big old musical, which hopefully they'll like. It's funny, it's a good musical. You know, you may not like sexual politics in it, but you've got to think of it as a history piece, and that's how I'm doing it. And that everybody in it is out for themselves, the women as well as the men. So
It's really self-aware though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's done consciously. The writer basically was rebelling against his parents wanting him to be a classical pianist, and he didn't want it. So this is part of that rebellion as well.
I think the last key thing from us, I think we've all, well, I know we've all discussed with me briefly in different teams, is that we could really do with a definite idea at all if the timetables are going to change, because our tables now break down, and in teams they're going to isolate when they should be rehearsals and when
our timetable's mental. I was just doing that with Laura before we came up, because the first years are also doing film projects as part of their FMP to give them more to do, because they're only ensemble. So it's, for us, it's going to be changing week by week, and I know that's a nightmare if you've got jobs. It's very likely we might give our second years Wednesday afternoons off.
That's the main thing, is knowing when they're not going to be in, so we can
So Monday's a big day because they're always with me, first, second years on a Monday, so that's a big day for us. Tuesdays, they're singing in the morning on Tuesdays, so that might be a day, they'll always be doing that, so that's not such an important day for you. And I don't, Friday mornings I always have to be in management meetings, so I won't ever teach on a Friday morning. I will on a Friday afternoon.
I think if we could get some, if you could email us with just like key times where this will always be a big rehearsal, so we know that stage management will be there, set designs maybe organised to check things.
You're going to be joining the rehearsal. Great, perfect.
Right.
Any
last questions? We will be doing other meetings, so this isn't a kind of final thing.
Are you going to now work with Mike and Ted?
I'll do a quick walkthrough, I think I have to go. So we'll go through.
Quick walkthrough and then we can start. I think Charlie